Go to command. Fire is responding to the scene with truck 432, 434, 435, engine 43 inside.
So what I wanted to show, because this is a 9-minute video that goes through this, and if any of you would like the link to it, I can provide it. It's on my slide. Is that each of these rooms has their own view, and the view is dependent on when they send a vehicle or human in to be able to see it. It's what they could see from that. So the police are looking at what the police cruiser can see, the fire's looking at, and if they choose not to send someone, all they can see is, like, I'm assuming a blank screen, or perhaps it's just, you know, some sort of screensaver or something. So you have these independent bodies behaving just as they would. For anyone who followed disaster response and its evolution after 9/11 and the issues that they had with communication, this kind of thing is becoming very, very popular, both in small and big cities. And again, you could actually, this particular system, you can set it up so that you have only one group. If they're the only ones who can be involved, they can continue on and have the other areas be simulated. The other thing that you can use games for are surgery applications. Now, research has come out recently that playing certain kinds of games improves surgeons' manual dexterity. I am living proof that that is not necessarily true, because I have horrible manual dexterity and I play a lot of games. However, things that you may not be able to see that frequently. So for example, let's say that I did medical residency or medical internship here at St. Michael's Hospital. I don't know if they take interns, but go with me on this example. I would probably see more hunting accidents than in Los Angeles, I would hope. Maybe not more things that were called hunting accidents, but more actual hunting accidents. But I would see fewer, let's say, gunshot wounds that took place during bank robberies. Does that mean that as a physician who wants to be prepared for working in the United States that I shouldn't see gunshot wounds? Or traumatic assault, or large car accidents, or a racially diverse set of patients? No, of course not. You want me to be as prepared as possible, having gone through as many scenarios as possible. So simulations can be used to create events that you may not see that frequently in a particular area. So if you wanted to see, this is a very short video and it's really cool. I hope if you don't like dentistry, you may want to look away. This is 3D dental implant surgery. Again, this one isn't particularly set up like a game, but well, it is pretty awesome. There we go. And this is a commercial, for which I apologize. Again, this is why I chose the 1-minute version instead of the 3-minute. This, I think, is awesome, which is you can actually see how you did by taking away the rest of the head. Sorry, I come from a medical family. I'm actually my parents were disappointed when I didn't become a medical doctor, so. But after watching that video, I'm sure I made the right decision. When it says haptics, what it means is that when they're actually pushing, and I won't use teeth because then I'll get grossed out, but if you were doing something to take the pulse, if you were touching a controller, it will actually push back at you the way that the person would. So when you're actually pushing, say, testing like the gums, what you're interacting with, if it's a hard spot or if it would push back, then it actually will move your hand back. So for surgery simulations, that's really important, because if you hit bone, it'll feel different than if you hit tissue. And so those are becoming more and more important, and trying to make the controller more realistic than, because no one's going to do surgery with a GameCube controller, right? So they want to make them look like that. The last thing that I wanted to leave you with today before I open it up for questions are some emergent trends, things that I see as a researcher and also as a longtime gamer, coming forward from sort of the gaming area and the gaming realm. The first are games that are location-based. Now that you have, not everyone, I know I don't, but many people have smartphones, like iPhones, where you can turn it on so that people know where you are at any point. You'll either have games that are specific to the physical location that you're at. So for example, you walk by McDonald's and a McDonald's game comes up and says, hey, like, do you want to play this game for a coupon? Or location-specific games, such as one of my dream research projects, and I don't want to have a chance to do it, is to create a game based on Schmeekly. So you can go see things that are hidden in Schmeekly, like fairies or something like that, and when you go to a specific place in it, the satellites and your phone will tell you where you are, and then you can, do a particular action with the phone, and then you'll get to see a little fairy. And it'll encourage people to exercise and also encourage like searching, or they could be, you know, woodland creatures if you wanted to add in that whole extra area. So that location-based, the most recent one that I saw of this was a zombie chase, where you're supposed to be chased by zombies and you run away from it. You can look on your phone and see where it is, and it's based on a map of where you are. And that just screams someone running in front of a car, which hasn't happened yet, but really? Like, you don't think, I mean, I see people walk in front of cars texting. I think that if you then tell them they're being chased by a zombie, that just screams problem. But if you could do that in a gymnasium, or if you could do that in a again, somewhere like Schmeekly, and you were sure the person wasn't gonna fall down a hill, you could be good. Second are rewards or achievements. These are just starting. This is a new part of the feedback system or motivation. If I give you something, you are more likely to like me. Do you like that? That's my summary of psychology. Thank you very much. No, actually, one of my friends from where I did graduate school is a neuropsychologist, and he measures chemicals, and that's a very short version of Paul Zach's most recent theories, is generosity is contagious and other things like that. But if you give me something virtually, for example, you give me, in PlayStation 3, they give you trophies when you accomplish certain things, it sort of makes you want to acquire more, or certain kinds of people to acquire more. But I think that we have certain parts of these in things like air mile collecting schemes and getting cents off for gas, even if we don't use it at the local grocery store. I think we'll start to see more and more of those tied into interacting with companies' websites and interacting with companies' social media, where you get more achievements or badges, the equivalent of badges for people who are familiar with scouting or Girl Scouts, that kind of thing. The third thing that I wanted to mention were motion detecting games. We're used to the idea of Wii, right? You have something you hold and you move it. But more and more games are now starting slowly to be based on the idea that Microsoft Kinect has, which is you have a camera facing you or a set of cameras facing you, and it determines where you are in space. And then that gives us a lot of other opportunities to do fun things, such as one of the programs that's out right now measures where you are and teaches you how to dance. And instead of just being where your feet hit on the floor, now it's your whole body. So they can say, okay, your legs look good, but your upper body's messed up. Or your legs are good, but you forgot to move your head. That kind of thing. I think this has real opportunity for more specific training for things like, okay, when you throw a football, your feet are good, but your arm's off. Or when you let go of it, you're looking the wrong way. Or me, whenever I golf, I forget to follow the ball. So I just do this, and then the ball goes tunk. These kinds of cameras will eventually have the sensitivity where they can say, everything looks okay so far, but this is where you made the mistake. And I don't see why they couldn't train us with a wider variety of things. Finally, receiving benefits for playing a long time. Again, more and more gaming companies want you to continue spending time, and so they'll give you rewards, but I don't see why other gaming companies couldn't start doing that by saying, hey, we noticed that you're playing, and GameStop, the major retailer chain, has started to do that with a company called Congregate that they've affiliated with recently. But saying things like, okay, if you spend 10 hours with us virtually, we'll give you the same benefit as if you joined our rewards club in the store. Or if you play, there are certain games, I play games online right now, and if you play on certain days of the week or days of the month, you get special prizes. And then other people go, oh, how do you get those prizes? And I suppose that would be exciting for somebody. Or they'll give you things like a special hat you can wear in the game. And then you're like, dee, dee, dee. But again, with the premise that virtual things can have value, some companies are starting to move on to things like coupons or percentages off, and again, to create more affinity between you and the company. And I think that those 4 trends will continue in the future, and definitely there's a lot more of those kinds of things coming. I just am so excited by the future of games. Last thing that I wanted to leave you with related to us is what we do in the Computing and New Media Technologies department at Point. So we have some courses related to gaming. We have 2 majors, as Dean Sermo mentioned, Computer Information Systems and Web and Digital Multimedia Development. We have courses in programming, digital multimedia, networking, development of applications, including games and including business systems. And we also have web development. And our research spans a whole variety of things, including video games, but also human-computer interaction. Hopefully through some of the simulations that I showed you today, neither of those 2 companies would say they sell games. But based on the criteria that I established, they absolutely can, if your passion is video games, you can apply those in those areas. Networking databases, mobile applications, and we have a lot of students employed both locally, and actually this year, now that I've been here longer and know more students, we actually are seeing more and more students go abroad, and by abroad I mean within the US. We have some students that have gone abroad, but Arizona and California, and the first student we had 4 student interns go to California this summer to work on different applications. And one of them actually stayed, and his internship employer was so happy with him, he said, I'll keep you on until you find a job, like a full-time job somewhere else. So yeah, so that took it didn't take him very long, it only took him a couple weeks, but I think it speaks well of the program. And again, not his main focus while he was here, but one of his main interests was games, and he's now applying that to making advert games, but he could just as easily apply it to dental simulation if he gets the bug to make dental simulators. So as games converge more and more with more traditional forms of media, I think that there's lots of opportunities to take what you enjoy about games and apply them in the real world into real life. So I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you have, and I have left my information up here if you did want any of the links from the presentation, or if you want to contact me later. Otherwise, I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Are professional athletes using the kinds of simulations that you showed a moment ago to analyze their stance, like a tennis player serving in tennis, classic? How high should the ball go? Where should my arm be? Are professional teams beginning to use these and putting monitors on the players to monitor their movements?
I would find it, because I took a tour of the facility in, is it Torrance, Southern California, that the Lakers and the Kings trained in. And I got the very high level tour because it wasn't someone that actually trained them. But yeah, they have basically devices, they're not hooked up to games, so they have the feedback system, but it's not for rewarding. It was more, this is the range of motion that you had, here's the range of motion that you want. Diagnostic, exactly. But they could also keep it on, so they would get seen by, let's say, a physiotherapist, given the official measurement, and then told, okay, keep doing this exercise. I would be very surprised if now, because this was years and years ago, they wouldn't keep those devices on and then say, okay, now watch for yourself. And then all you need is the addition of like a green light, yellow light, red light to say, okay, you're in the range, don't go that far, that kind of thing. I think it makes, without letting a cat out of a bag, of a grant that we're pursuing right now on campus, the idea of using games and gaming methodology to get people to be more successful in physiotherapy is definitely there. People have that idea. Because the games right now are kind of the hot thing, right? Everybody loves games. Well, not really true. A lot of people love them, but not everybody. And games will make everyone do everything. Again, not really true, but it will make more people do things, especially people who don't like certain other feedback systems. And yeah, I think it'd be great. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I have a quick comment and a question. I heard in the news recently, you probably heard this too, that some gamers were published in a scientific journal for the first time for helping to solve the structure of a protein, which was kind of cool. And then, so that'll probably happen more. And then the other comment or question is, I wondered if you know anything about games used to simulate effects and or responses to climate change.
Ooh. I know, well, addressing the first point, which was about the protein folding, there is this, I'm trying to remember the organization that did it, because I played it briefly and it just wasn't my cup of tea. The way that, if you know the chemical structure of protein, that's one thing, but if you know how the protein folds on itself and what its outside looks like, that is very important to trying to decide. If you think about trying to break into something, what the outside looks like and what it's made of is really important, right? If I say break into this box, but I don't show you the box, you'll be like, do I need a drill? Do I need a blowtorch? What do I need? It's the same thing with the way that proteins are shaped in terms of how you want to try to get into them. And so what this very brilliant set of researchers did was they said, people like games. Let's see, instead of having computers try to go through everything and trying to have paid PhDs, let's put it out there and give people the chemical structure and then say, you try to create the bonds and make these as tight as possible. And so it gave you a score, which was how tight the bonds were and how, I think it was how few or how many, I remember playing it. And it would tell you the person who's done the best is this. This is what it looks like. Start from there and see if you can do better, or start with it completely unwrapped. And there are certain kids, and specifically kids, it was in a Wired article before this particular one, were so good at it and were spending hours and hours a day. Their parents, it was really cute, they interviewed the parents, and they were like, the parents were making sure they were doing homework and stuff, but this seemed to be what they liked to do, and they were really good at it. They were better at it than any of the researchers, and this is what they'd done their PhDs in, was to try to find this folding. So these, the kids got free trips to where the researchers were from, and they got awards, and they got accolades, and they're now being routed into that particular type of graduate school if they're interested in it. If they're not, I mean, obviously it's, you know, not indentured servitude, so they can't do that. But these are kids who, they're like, wow, I never would have thought about this if it hadn't been for this game. And most recently they came up with, do you remember what what they actually folded? It was something really cool. It was, yeah, the key to some disease or something, and yeah, again, just kids did it because they were gaming. But yeah, the accomplishments that they made even 2 or 3 years ago in that particular project were amazing. The second question you had was regarding climate change. We actually had students in one of my colleague, Professor Ellertson's class. He has them do not social games, sorry, serious games, or games meant to educate, and where the point isn't necessarily to have fun, it's more to convey certain learning objectives, or learning outcomes. And so I remember this game, there were polar bears, and depending on what you did, the ice cap would melt, and if you lost, the polar bear would be standing on it and be like, and then it would flip over, and it was sad, but not exceptionally morbid, because, you know, then you could restart it. But I could definitely look for some more, because I'm sure some companies have done it and gone further with it. And the science in that was fairly thin, because the object was more about, can you create a game, rather than the science.
Well, just in response to the climate change question, there are simulations out there, major computer simulations of climate change now, where they're actually treating them as games and having various people from different fields come in and say, I need a volcanologist. How often will this volcano erupt? And so they'll program that in. It's weird. They're almost becoming games because they're becoming competitions between research groups, which is a really interesting thing when you think about it, because if you can develop competition between research groups, they actually discover more because they're competitive within each other.
Oh, yeah.
It's really kind of neat.
Absolutely. And if you build in the team building, which is after a certain period of time you have to share how you got to that point, then you get into the kinds of things like you saw with Netflix a few years back, which was teams trying to compete to make the recommendation engine more accurate. No team could do it alone. It was, I think, $1 million prize. So finally 2 teams that was getting close to the deadline combined their findings together. They'd spent more than probably $500,000 of research dollars, but they were happy because they could take the title home, and they were able to improve it in not an order of magnitude, but 5 or 10%, because anytime you try to get machines better at something, once you get to 90%, that last 5% or that last 6% is much, much tougher than usually the first 75%.
Any other questions for Dr. Miller? If not, thank you very much, Trudi.
Thank you very much for coming.